No, I don't know where the dogs are. You'll have to find them yourself. I've got to go to drinks. Bye. Bye. Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Crazy, crazy, crazy here. Hello, Paul and Roz. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Craig. Hello, Emily. Hello, Polly. Are you back, are you? Wicked dog. Very tired, panty dog here. Hello, Nareem and Keely. How are you? Sharpie and Rod. Hey, you made it. Excellent. Yes, Craig, some Pinots out of the Hunter are very green. Anyway, happy St. Pat's Day, everybody. Oh, Emily and Kevin are on different computers. Hello, Emily and Kevin. Does that mean you're in different rooms as well? I hope you worked out how to share the wine. There we go. Emily, Kevin, and I do. Oh, good work, team. Very well organised. Peter and Karen, hello. I knew I'd not said hello to somebody. Yes, Craig and Karen and Joan. Well, exciting times. Lovely to see you all. It's a bit steamy here. I've got a cat in here with me. I've got dogs banging through the door. Hello, Michael. Lovely to see you. We did miss you last week, but that's okay. It's fine to come in and go away again. Linda's here. Hello. Oh, we've got a good group tonight. Everyone's coming back for the last wine of the box, and what a lovely wine it's going to be as well. We've had a busy day here in the winery. We're getting towards the end of our busy days in the winery, but it was so busy today. I'm just going to turn my phone on silent so that it doesn't distract me. It was so busy today, we didn't have time to drink green beer at the end of the day, which is a bit of a Moorooduc tradition at Moorooduc. So it's probably quite good. Keeps me fresher for you guys. Hello, Brooke. How are you? Yes. Anyway, let's talk about. Well, I'm going to have a sip of water because I'm a bit hot. People were asking about Reggie as well, and you can't see him because he's right in front of me at the moment. But he's looking a bit drab at the moment because all of his tail feathers have fallen out. So, well, as for those of you who have been on this journey with me from the beginning, you'll know that as we go into the later autumn and into winter, then all of a sudden it starts getting dark during Drinks with Kate, and then we have a few nights where we get a little flurry from Reg up here, and he jumps up on his wall. So that's always something to look out for. Probably with our next box at some stage. Zach, Jack, Hannah and Toby, hello, welcome back, guys. It was a little group last week. It was a lovely group last week, but we did miss a few of you, and it's nice to see you back. Hello, Sarah and all the tricks. Hello, Daryl and Sue. I wonder if Sue's got home yet. Sue is here with the naughty dogs, so it was a bit of a dash home. I'm sure Daryl will have all the wine all sorted for you and whatever lovely snacks you have. So, Robinson Pinot Noir 2019. We should probably get some in the glass, hey? And then I can tell you some stories. I'm not quite sure what stories I'm going to tell you today, but who knows? It's always very exciting. Oh, hello, Sue. You very good driving. Robinson Pinot Noir 2019. Now, if it's a bit hot and steamy where you are, and you remembered from last time we had Pinot Noir to pop this in the fridge for half an hour, then you're smarter than me. I've had this in an air-conditioned room, though, so it should be quite a good temperature. It's in the Pinot glass. I like to use a Pinot glass. I'll get the wine in the glass and then I'll start explaining. And the 2019, such a beautiful pale garnet colour. Really pretty. I'll pop this over here because I have a feeling that Richard and Jill will come and steal it. Oh, Brooke. So was it another bottle? Are you drinking it again tonight, or you drank it a couple of days early? Doesn't matter anyway. If you've got something else to drink, that's fine as well. I always say to people, if you don't have the wine to drink, by all means open something else. Have a beer, have a gin and tonic, have a tonic and vodka and tonic, vodka and soda, whatever takes your fancy. Maybe a cup of tea or a glass of water. Just come and join us for the chat because it's always nice to have a little chat. Cheers, everyone. So 2019 Robinson Pinot, a nice place to finish box 6. Oh, that smells beautiful. Hello, Shell. I was wondering where you and Andrew were. Lovely to see you. Ginger prawn dumplings and mushroom dumplings at your place. Very good. Well, I think the mushroom dumpling. Oh, good work, Brooke. Double Robinson Pinot then this week, maybe. I'm not sure how the ginger prawn dumplings will go, Shell, with the Pinot, but that will be a good experiment and you can report back. I think the mushroom dumplings will be awesome. Try them without chili first and then add the chili and see which you like better, because sometimes Pinot Noir, particularly a soft, fruity Pinot like this youthful Robinson Pinot, can work quite well with a little bit of chili, but just kind of, just go easy. Because it is quite a delicate little wine. So what stories can I tell you? Anyone who's following our social media will have seen that we've been playing around with a little teeny tiny press this week, and we pressed off some Viognier earlier in the week, and that was fruit. It's not Moorooduc Estate fruit, so don't get excited. We're not going to be making a Moorooduc Estate Viognier. It was teeny tiny quantities anyway. But it's a little bit of fruit that comes from the Robinson Vineyard, and the new owners of the Robinson Vineyard wanted to have a bit of a play with it. So who are we to thwart that desire? So we got out the little press. Oh, Jeff, diced lamb kebabs. That sounds delicious. Lamb is really good with Pinot Noir. You've got to kind of keep, again, the spiciness to a minimum, because the lamminess and then the spiciness can sort of overwhelm the flavors of the wine, but I think that the lamb could go very well. So we pressed off the little bit of Viognier for the Robinson Vineyard team, and that was fun. And then we had the little mini press out again today to press off the ferments from the rootstock trial. And the rootstock trial is, again, not our wine. It's a wine that it's some little teeny tiny batches of wine that we're making for a comparative tasting for the Mornington Peninsula Vignerons Association. So it's our work that we do for the association, and it's quite fun to play with the press, even though it's very slow. It's so small. So if you haven't had a look at our social media this week, have a look. There's some nice little reels. Pump over of the Pinot Gris on skins this week. So that's started fermenting nicely, chugging along. So we pumped it over on Tuesday and we're plunging it now, and beautiful colour, some amazing aromas. So very excited about that wine from 2022. Some bad news about 2022. Well, not bad news, just slightly disappointing news, is that we're only going to have about 200 cases or 200 dozen bottles of the estate Chardonnay, because crops were so small this year. We're about 50% down on a normal vintage, whatever normal means these days. So it's meant that sort of vintages come along in fits and starts, but it also means that we're really relying on quality. So we think that there's some pretty good quality wines there. There's just not going to be a lot around. So anyway, that's something to worry about in the future. Let's get back to the wine. Brooke's got duck ravioli, fantastic. I went down, oh, hello. I don't know how to say that, Alison. Is it Sinead? I apologise. I'm not very good at reading. It looks like an Irish name, so and it's not quite Sinead. So, but I'm thinking maybe it's something like that. Hello, friend. Lovely to meet you, and I'm sorry that I just butchered your name. Sheena, thank you, Sheena. Thank you, Alison. It's always my brain. You know that my brain's going in 54 different directions, so trying to get names right is tricky. Oh, so here I've got my Wild Geese t-shirt on today because I've been doing vintage. I won't show you my legs because I'm wearing my vintage shorts, which is very attractive. But you only get to see me from the Wild Geese up. So that's good. And yes, I could be offended by that, Sue. All right, let's taste some wine. It's had enough time to air. You'll have noticed that I didn't talk about bringing out the decanter. Didn't even go there today, because I think that with a wine like this, it's a single vineyard Pinot Noir. It's quite young, so it will evolve in the glass. But what we want to do is see how it evolves in the glass rather than miss something by decanting it first. So the act of decanting a young wine, the act of putting the wine into a big glass and then giving it a swirl around is the same. It's about getting a little bit of air into the wine and letting the aromas kind of come out of the wine. So I love the fact that this wine smells like it's really floral. It's kind of rose petals and violet, first of all, and red cherries. It's kind of crunchy, and so quite a few of you have drunk this with me before. I think it's evolving really nicely as a wine, and we're also hoping with the Robinson Vineyard. We were just looking at our backstock, and we've been making Robinson Vineyard as a single vineyard wine. As a commercial release since 2010. So this is the 2019. So we've got 19 vintages, and we're thinking that at some stage this year, it'd be really cool to put on a vertical of at least the best of those 19 vintages, if not all 19. So watch this space. If we do that, I think we might have to run a couple of sessions because it's going to be a bit of a mammoth task, but I think it could be really fun. Anyway, let's taste the wine. How is everyone's wine tasting? You've all gone very quiet, apart from asking me to show you my chest. Strangles are right. Hello, Sue and Jeff. Lovely to see you. Everything's just settling. Everyone's just settling in. It's all good. We're all cool. You've missed the vintage report, but it's okay. Jane, good on you. Bit of Colcannon. How fantastic. So, yeah, I was trying to think of something Irish to go with Pinot, and I failed completely. So thank you, Joan, for persisting. What is Colcannon? Potato and is it mashed potato and leeks? Tell us what's in it, Craig. In the meantime, taking a sip. I love the sort of cool red fruit expression of this wine. It's always, so the Robinson Vineyard is about 4.5 bacon and spinach with potato. I'm sure there's potato in there. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, sounds delicious. Jack, I think it's drinking amazingly well straight from the glass at this early stage as well. And it's one of those wines that, you know, our Duck Pinot and certainly the Garden Pinot with their whole bunch element, sometimes when they're young, they're a bit hard to get into and you need to kind of think hard about them. Whereas the Robinson Pinot is always a very seductive wine. It's just all about silkiness and florals and red fruit. Oh, thank you, Craig. I thought I was going mad there for a minute. Silky fruit, silky texture, red fruit. There's a little bit of crunchiness, but it's not too. It's not violent in any way. It's not. The tannins are really soft, but they're there. It's really the epitome of purity and focus and just deliciousness, I think. And it's a wine that when it's young, it has all that brightness and freshness. And then when it ages, it develops these really intriguing sort of mushroomy, earthy, very sexy tertiary characters, which is also very nice. So just on a technical note, all of our Pinot Noirs that we make, apart from the Garden Vineyard Pinot, are made in the same way. So okay, Alison. It's not traditional. What's traditional in Colcannon, Alison? I'm fascinated by the Colcannon recipes now. You're making me hungry as well. I actually was looking up recipes and I was sort of thinking about dumplings from different parts of the world, and there are lots of Central European dumpling recipes from places where war is waging at the moment, which is terribly sad. And I thought it wasn't really appropriate to kind of, you know, say, let's eat, drink and be merry and have Ukrainian dumplings. But I was amazed to see that a lot of the dumplings from Ukraine, Poland, from Russia are potato-filled dumplings. So obviously the potato theme, whether we're going Irish, whether we're going Central European, it's a pretty good one. And I think, you know, carb on carb is always pretty delicious. So Okay, Shell, the ginger prawn dumplings bring out a salty umami flavour in the wine. The mushrooms bring out the earthy, juicy flavour. Yep. So more sort of traditional match the mushroom with the juicy kind of earthy characters. And this wine has got some green spring onion butter. Could be kale or spinach. Thank you, Alison. I might go home and make some. I've got all those things in my cupboard, in my fridge. Where was I? Yes, this Pinot Noir is made the same way as the Estate Pinot Noir and as the McIntyre Pinot Noir, the Garden Vineyard Pinot Noir. As most of you know now, is 100% whole bunch, and we will be tasting that again down the track. Hello, Peter. How are you going? Yes, Pete. 9 vintages. Thanks, Pete. You know that math's not my thing. It's good to have your brother online to correct you. Nobody else corrected me. Everyone else is too polite to say, Kate, that's not 19. 10 plus 19 minus 10. Anywho, that would make a much better tasting, actually, 9 vintages of Robinson Pinot. I'm just going to have a sip of my wine and gather myself after that embarrassment. So everything is, so this wine destemmed, goes into a open vat fermenter. We cool the fruit down, but we don't make it too cold. So it gets down to about 12 degrees overnight before we start processing it, before we put it through the destemmer. And that just means that when it sits there, thank you, Sharpie. Words, not numbers for Kate. Just remember that. Anytime anyone asks me about numbers, I get it wrong. That's okay. We have to know our strengths and our weaknesses in life. This wine gets cooled down so that we have some cool soak time before the ferment starts. Thank you, Michael. We do have a 20 and a 21 vintage, but we haven't released them yet. So if we release the 2020, then we'd have 11 vintages. So there you go. Thank you, Shappy and Rod. Wine is much more important than numbers. I'm going to talk about wine and not numbers from now on. The ferment gets started because we've cooled it down and we're relying on natural or wild yeast. Do you like how I did that? Whoop, sit up straight, Kate. Then because it's cool, Sue had the duck risotto last night. Sue, what are you thinking? Oh, Sue's not there. It's just you, Jeff. I know Sue's off a swimming class or something. That's a shame. That would have been really nice. I hope you've got something to nibble with your Pinot Noir. I'm sure you'll find something appropriate. So we've cooled the fruit down. We've destemmed it. We've put it in the fermenter. We haven't added anything. We're relying on the natural yeast to do the fermentation. So it takes a little while for it to warm up enough for the ferment to get started. And while it's doing that over a few days, then the yeast in the wine is just kind of multiplying, growing its muscles, getting ready to start the job of changing sugar to alcohol. This year, we've been finding that the ferments have been starting quite quickly, and I think it's partly because of this sort of steamy weather that we're having. But I think also the berries are coming in with quite thin skins, so I think that they're quite delicate as compared to some years when there's a little bit thicker skins, a little bit more robustness in the berries. So maybe they're just sort of breaking open and letting the yeast into them a little bit earlier in the process. But we're finding that the ferments are getting started in sort of 3, 4, 5 days, whereas often in some years it'll take longer than that for the ferment to get started. Whatever it is, we just kind of let it all happen. And then once the ferment started, and the way we know that it started, we put a big plastic sheet over the top of the fermenter and we seal it with a big elastic band, like a big hairband. And once the ferment has started, you get a bit of condensation on the plastic and you can check to see if it's creating carbon dioxide. Once that's happening, we pump it over. I talked about pumping over the Pinot Gris on skins earlier this week. We pump it over to get some oxygen into the system because yeast likes oxygen to do its job. And then we plunge it twice a day. And that's how we get the colour and the texture in the wine. Now, you can see with that quite pale colour in the Robinson Pinot and the quite delicate, fine, silky tannins, that even with all that work, we get a wine that, yes, it's structured, but it's quite soft still. So it kind of, if we didn't work the skins with the juice as much as we do, then we'd end up with a wine that was paler in colour, softer, fruitier, but with less of that nice kind of savoury juxtaposition to the wine. And I think particularly with the Robinson, it needs that. It needs that work. It needs that plunging twice a day to just pull some of the tannin and structure and savouriness out of the skins and the colour as well, to give us the wine that we've got in the glass today. Then once the ferment's finished, we let the skins soak in the wine, because it's wine rather than sugary grape juice at this stage. And the tricky thing is, and I know I've told you guys this before, but it's worth saying it again, but the cool thing about winemaking, particularly red winemaking, is that some of the colours and tannins in the skins are water soluble. So they come out of the skins early on in the process when it's water and sugar making up the juice. And then after the fermentation's finished, then the tannins and some tannins and flavours and colour in the skins are alcohol soluble. So by having a post-fermentation maceration or soaking on the skins after the fermentation's finished, then you're extracting different flavours, different textures from the skins. And we think that's a really important part of the winemaking as well. You get some of those slightly more savoury, bitter characters towards the end of the ferment and after the ferment's finished. Craig, you're asking if it's slightly higher than usual acidity in this one. It's really interesting because in 2019 we had a strange vintage in that it was quite sort of even and cool up until just before vintage, or just on vintage for us. It was just before vintage for quite a lot of people down here on the peninsula. We had a heat wave, and the Robinson Pinot, we looked at the weather and we could see that the heat wave was coming, and we decided to pick it just a day earlier maybe than we usually would, and that meant that we got slightly more delicate flavours, slightly more delicate colour, and slightly higher acidity in the wine. It's got a real crispness and a brightness to it, which I think is very much both a reflection of the Robinson vineyard, which always has a crispness and brightness to it, but also of this particular vintage and the conditions that we had to deal with. You'll find a lot of vintage variation in the 2019s down on the peninsula, because in the south, people are sort of 2 or 3 weeks behind us. So that heat wave actually just kind of helped to ripen the fruit rather than taking it too far. If we'd left the fruit on longer than we did, then we might have got slightly overripe flavours rather than that kind of fresh, bright, red fruited character. They change really quickly when it's really hot. It is really interesting, Shell, that a day can make so much difference. And it's really frustrating because to get the picking, and we feel really lucky and we work pretty hard at it, but we've got good relationships and we've got a good team of people working with us to get that fruit picked exactly when we want it. And we're getting better at sort of forward planning for that. So we'll do the hello, Richard, please help yourself to some wine. Richard's just come back from looking for my dog. I think she ran away and then came back without him, so he's had a bit more of a walk than the dogs did. I think having most of our fruit is hand picked, so we need humans to do that hand picking, and that's been pretty difficult, partly because of COVID, but just also because everybody wants their fruit picked at about the same time, and so you need to have a lot of people available to do that picking. So we'll sample the fruit, and we're pretty good now at kind of looking at what the weather's supposed to be doing, looking at where the sugars and the flavours are in the fruit on that day of sampling, and saying, okay, if everything is as it says on paper, so if the weather does what the Weather Bureau tells us it's going to do, then we should pick this fruit in 3 days' time, and we lock that in. And every now and again, it's a little bit cooler than we think it's going to be. The fruit ripens a little bit more slowly at the end of its ripening process than we expect it to. So it's not a perfect science, but we're finding that we're doing a much better job of picking the fruit exactly when we want to pick it, or maybe slightly before, which we think is better than picking it too late when it's got too ripe and overripe. The acids drop and the sugars are too high, and it can get sort of overwhelming. So that's part of the it's part of the skill of vintage. I don't take any credit for any of that. It's Richard and Jeremy in the winery making those decisions, and it's Hugh Robinson and his team out doing the sampling and bringing in, you know, bunches of fruit from different parts in the vineyard for us to look at and to taste and to analyse to make sure that we're getting the right flavours, the right colour intensity, the right amount of sugar, all of those things, and then being able to extrapolate what's on the table today to tomorrow to 3 days ahead, 5 days ahead, and then trying to get the team booked in and say, we really want you to pick this on Friday afternoon. And they're like, oh, we've got 5 other vineyards to pick on Friday afternoon. It's like, what about Friday midday? And it's like, oh, well, we'll see what we. So it's quite a juggle, and yeah, it's quite an interesting job. I'm very glad that I don't have to do it, because it looks quite stressful as well, trying to work things out. Hello, Cotty. Mushroom ragu with black garlic and homemade pasta. How delicious. Oh, I'm so glad that you like this wine. Does the whole team pick? Or no? So Zach and Jack, we don't generally do the picking. The last 2 years we've picked Shiraz ourselves because of COVID and not being able to get a team at the right time. And the Shiraz is a small enough harvest to be able to just get the family in and just do it. But for the rest of the wines, there's a team of professional pickers that work with Peninsula Vine Care, which is Hugh Robinson and Tyson and Matt's business. So those guys run that for us. They also have a machine picker, and we do machine harvest a little bit of fruit for the Devil Bean Creek wines, and also the Pinot Gris on skins has been machine harvested for the last couple of years, and it's a very high quality machine harvester, and it means that you can just go, okay, let's pick this now. The machine goes in, picks it, and the fruit is really good. We're very excited by it. So that's a nice little revelation, but the machine harvester can't actually cope with most of our vineyards. The Cotty makes the black garlic, Craig. It's really good. I got the opportunity to taste some a little while back, and it's really beautiful. I'd be really interested to know how you actually do make the black garlic, because it tastes completely different from fresh garlic, but it's gorgeous. I think I agree with you, Cotty, about wine and food changing each other, and I think that this is part of the joy of this group, is that we get to taste the wine by itself, but then you guys create these amazing tables of food, and it's one of the things that I try really hard to kind of say, you know, if you just want to do cheese, or you just want to have like a bowl of crisps and some cashew nuts, that's okay. You don't need to go all out and create a feast, but we've got you lot leading the way, creating these incredible feasts of food. And so I do always try and give you sort of different levels of things to sort of bring to the table, so as to say. So yeah, what was I saying about the wine? What else was I was talking about machine harvesting, which we'll move on from, but the harvesting side of things is pretty cool. And the other thing that's really cool is that things have changed in the vineyard so much that in the old days when we used to pick, so I think the vines are older, but we've also had so much of a change of sort of the climate patterns of the season that we're picking now about a month earlier than we used to pick in the 80s and 90s. So we would be picking late March, early April for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. in the early days. And now if we haven't started picking by the end of February, then we think there must be something a bit wrong. That said, the Shiraz is still on the vine, and we think that with this kind of weird, we're having kind of slightly steamy weather. It's cold at night. We've had a little bit of rain. I know a lot of you are local and you know exactly what's going on, but there are some of you I know that are in Sydney and Brisbane and places. So I always feel like it's worth kind of just updating you on the weather here. And that sort of unsettled kind of humid weather has slowed down the ripening of the Shiraz a little bit. And we think that probably Andrew's Pinteresting mushroom and black garlic ragu. I'm not sure. Is it in Pinterest, is it? I thought Cotty grows some amazing things. Yeah, so we think that the Shiraz will take a little bit longer, but all of the rest of the vines, the fruit's been picked for a few weeks and they're still green and healthy. We're getting a few yellow and brown leaves just sort of developing now, which means that they're just starting to think about dropping their leaves and going to sleep for the winter. But they're so healthy and they're so happy in the vineyard that they just, they just kind of rock along with the sunshine after we've taken the fruit off, and they're just having a nice big breathe and a lovely rest. So I think that's awesome. Richard, you better get Jill a little glass of wine as well. Jill's come in. She looks a bit exhausted. She's been running around after poodles as well this afternoon. Too old to run. No good. We didn't know where the peacock was. It was quite scary. Sharpie and Rod, do I personally check every day? No, Craig, we haven't picked the Nebbiolo. That will probably be about the same time as the Shiraz, although it is looking like it's ripening a little bit faster. Sorry, Sharpie and Rod, I'm not quite sure. What are you asking if I check the ripeness of the fruit, or how the vines are looking, or I thought you'd made it up too, Cotty. I didn't know that mushroom and black garlic ragu was a thing, but there you go. Yes, the fruit. So I don't personally check it every day. Between Richard, Jeremy, and myself, we look at the samples. We don't necessarily check them every day because we have a pretty good idea after checking them sort of every 3 or 4 days how they're ripening, and we have a pretty good. Shell, you're just going to add black garlic paste to everything. I think Cotty, we need to set up a little side shop for your garlic and black garlic and the popcorn on the cob for Drinks with Kate people to add to their boxes in the future. So Shappy and Rod, we don't check the ripeness every day before we pick, but we do check sort of leading up to picking every 3 or 4 days, and we have a pretty good idea how it's all going. So and the fruit will sample absolutely, Brooke. I'll come to that in just a moment. But we sample whole bunches from different parts in the vineyard so that we have an idea of how the whole vineyard is ripening, and then we'll to do a juice sample, we basically crush the grapes in our hands in a sieve, and we sieve that juice out. We put that into a beaker. We take that into the laboratory. We taste it. We check the sugar level. Sometimes we'll check the pH, but usually we don't do that until the wine's kind of on its way, and we'll make decisions from that. So you kind of get used to it after a few decades of making wine, sort of knowing how things are ripening. But it doesn't often take us by surprise that it ripens quicker than we expected. But often when we start sampling, the fruit will be riper than we thought it might have been, and so then we have to make decisions about picking earlier and sampling again sooner. So that's certainly something that we have to react to sometimes. Craig, bought a kilo of local fresh garlic. Don't know what to do with it. Oh, Well, maybe you guys need to maybe I need to connect you to Cotty directly after the session, Craig, so that she can give you some garlic hints, because I think I'm pretty impressed with the quality of Cotty's fresh garlic, and the black garlic's amazing. So I just cook it in everything. You can pickle it too, I believe. Zach and Jack, yes, we have an on-site lab. It's not. I'm not sure if it. I'm not sure if we'd be able to cook up some meth, but oh, fantastic! Cotty's saying that you can freeze it or ferment it in honey. That sounds fabulous. But yes, the lab. Can you keep that dog quiet, please? Peter, your dog is being a pain. I've got 3 dogs here. My brother's little dog, the high bark that we just heard, she gets everyone started, and then everyone else gets barking. It's very silly. So yes, our on-site lab is very basic, and we can only check very basic things. Thank you, Craig. Good, Brooke. I'm glad we got yours barking as well. See, Tallulah, you've made everyone bark on the Drinks with Kate as well. Such power. She's a little dog and she has small dog syndrome, so don't give her ideas of power. Now, Brooke was mentioning the next box. I'll just have a sip of my wine. Time's going fast today. I feel like I'm talking fast and time's going fast and everything's, maybe I'm a bit speedy. Too much, running around too much today. Jill's telling Frodo to sit and he's completely ignoring her. Hello, Frodo. Are you being a naughty dog? Hey, buddy. No, he doesn't want to say hello to you guys either. Jeff, I think the savouriness is coming up really nicely in the wine. I was going to come back to the wine because we've been talking about just about everything else. And that you've still got that red fruit, that tangy red fruit, but the savouriness is coming up really nicely as it airs, and I think that that's really beautiful texture. I wish I had some mushrooms or some mushroom dumplings or some mushroom pasta to eat with it now, because I think that would be absolutely fabulous. Craig, our stock prices at the moment are pretty good. I would recommend that you don't leave it too long to stock up. But yeah, we've got enough to keep us going for a few more months, I think. It's a wine that really absolutely. Emily, you just preempted me. That's amazing. The wine is drinking beautifully right now, but I think if you've got a decent cellar and you have the patience to keep some of the bottles at least for 5 to 8 years, then it'll do some really lovely things with that time, and I think that you'll get a lot of joy out of it with that sort of age on it. So it's 2019 now. Give it another 5 years. Or 8 years, or even longer, it can go for. It will lose a bit of its bright fruit expression, but it'll develop that lovely savoury, mushroomy, earthy notes, and the floral characters kind of just soften out. Oh, good on you, Eric. The floral characters will soften out like sort of like dried rose petals rather than fresh roses, which is pretty nice. Drinks with Kate 2030. Well, Craig, I think that we'll certainly revisit the wine then, but I probably won't have very much of it to sell then. So good to pop it in the cellar now as well. I think, if we can do some verticals, you might have noticed in the next box that we're starting not next week, but the following week. And I'm hoping that I've given myself enough time to get wine to those of you who are interstate. Craig, yours is going tomorrow, as is a couple of other interstate orders. So that's great. But yes, when we start the next box in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be starting with an older Robinson Pinot. I think it's the 2015. I got myself very confused between the 16 and the 15. It's the 15. We tasted a few and we thought the 15 was in a really lovely spot, and that will give you that sense. It's 4 years older than this wine, so you're starting to get into that evolved character of the Robinson Pinot. So I think that'll be a really nice compare and contrast. If you can remember what this wine tasted like, even better. Well done. 2015. Thanks, Alison. Oh, thank you, Paul and Roz. I'm glad that that's interesting. Also, Brooke has pointed out that there's a couple of, it's quite Pinot Gris heavy in the next box. Don't let that put you off if you're not sure if you're a fan of Pinot Gris, because the Pinot Gris tasting, there's three bottles of Pinot Gris wine in the next box. 2 of them are Moorooduc Estate, and 1 of them is from Italy. It's Pinot Grigio from a really great producer. I'll tell you more about him when we get onto the tasting, but I'm really excited to be able to present his wine to you. And we're going to do something that we did last year. So for any of you who are new to this year, bear with me. And if you get confused, please feel free to send me an email before we do it, because I think it's going to be, it's not really complicated, but it just takes a little bit of explaining. So what you will need before we get to week 2 of box 2 is an empty, clean half bottle. It can be a half bottle that's had wine in it, that you've drank the wine and rinsed out the bottle and let it drip dry and then put it away. That's perfect. If you don't have a empty half bottle of wine in storage, then buy a half bottle of wine and drink it before then. Or if you don't want to do that, you can get something like a fruit juice bottle or something like that. It just needs to be glass. It needs to have something in it that's not too strong in flavour that you can't wash the smell of it out. And you need to have a lid that you can screw back onto it. So those are the important things about it. And it means that you'll be able to drink half of the bottle of the Franz Haas Pinot Grigio on week 2 of the tasting with the bottle of Moorooduc Estate Pinot Gris. We can compare and contrast that. And then the following week, we'll have the other half of the Franz Haas Pinot Grigio and compare it to the Devil Bean Creek Pinot Gris from Moorooduc. So 2 quite different styles of Pinot Gris from Moorooduc, comparing it to the 2 halves of the same Italian Pinot Grigio, which is a really good Italian Pinot Grigio and not like those cheap watery ones that you may have been traumatized by in the past. So Shell didn't appreciate Pinot Gris until Drinks with Kate came about. I know, and I think there's still, and we'll talk about this when we're drinking Pinot Gris for sure, but I did want to kind of give a little bit of a plug for the Pinot Gris tasting, because I do still have people who say, oh, I might just not buy that box because I'm not really into Pinot Gris, or can I buy the box, but can you swap something out so I don't have to have the Pinot Gris? It's like, well, this is a little exploration that we do together, and I think you should try the Pinot Gris, and if you still don't like it, that's okay. That's fine. But I think I do work quite hard to find things that are delicious and find food matches that will make them taste even more delicious. So I think that it will be great. And if you're a bit nervous, don't be. I'll help you find a little bit of love for Pinot Gris. So Rob Dolan. Oh, fantastic. Look, I love the Rob Dolan guys. Zach and Jack, it's funny you said late, because I am. It's very easy to autocorrect. The autocorrect often turns my name to late, which is also, McIntyres have a tendency to be a little bit late for things. I was even late to log in today, so there you go. We are getting towards the 45-minute mark, and I think it's probably just about time for me to say farewell. But before I do, I would like to remind you that next week we're having a break from wine. You're very welcome to come along and just drink a glass of wine while you watch me make cocktails. But and there was a little bit of pushback from my suggestion that we would make old fashions. I think I'm going to persist with old fashions, but I will give you, if you really don't want to go down the whiskey bourbon road for whatever reason, I know some people have a bit of an allergy to bourbon. I'll give you an alternative drink that you can make, which is also pretty good. It's a Oaxacan old fashioned. So I still can't spell Oaxacan. I would imagine that any of you who are into mezcal, Kevin, will know what I'm talking about. But I'll send you an email on Monday with all the details, but I'd like to talk to you about old fashions next week, not in the least because it was the cocktail that my grandfather used to make for my mum and dad when we used to go to visit my grandparents in Launceston between Christmas and New Year every year. So it's a very sort of special childhood memory for me. And he did a cool thing that whenever I look up recipes for old fashions, I never see it, and that's making it into a long drink with freshly squeezed orange juice. So that's going to be an option as well. It's pretty awesome. Watch this space. I will send you lots of instructions and an ingredients list for next week. And if you're brave, join me. If you're not, feel free to just have an orange juice or or a glass of Pinot Noir. But until then, cheers to the Robinson 2019. Current release at the moment. We'll be releasing the 2020 in May, June. This year, so we've still got a little bit of fun with this. Oh, that's nice, Emily and Kevin. It's a good drink. It's just I think Mad Men has given it a very bad reputation because they seem to drink it all the time and were not very well behaved as a result of it. Anyway, we'll be civilised next week, as we always are. Until then, have a lovely evening and have a great week, and I'll see you guys all soon. Don't forget to get your order in for Drinks with Kate Box 2 if you want to keep on the journey with me, and we'll be back very soon. Polly will be a very good girl tonight. She's got, hang on, before I sign off, there she is. She's fast asleep. Exhausted. So I'll see you all later. Cheers.